Rodriguez de Jager wants it back. He gets it back and leaves it through for Holtby. Oh, it's off the line. It's off the line.
So we're looking at Bayern Munich and Hansi Flick's Bayern Munich on today's episode. They've just won their sixth title, which was the Club World Cup, and we need to look at to why or how they have done this, because they've gone on an amazing run. 6 trophies is not a joke. So, and going from assistant manager to a manager that has won 6 trophies again, uh, we need to talk about that and delve into the stats maybe, and let's see how they got into it. He's a very interesting case study because he hasn't, managed any teams in the top flight. Previous to this, he was the assistant manager to the German national team that won the World Cup. But previously, his only managerial experience was with Hoffenheim, around 200 games, but never in the top flight. Going from that to, first of all, going to Bayern Munich that has such lofty standards, and then delivering on all fronts. He must be doing most things right.
Yeah, I think he's taken a lot of inspiration from, Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp, and when he's implementing tactics. And I guess he's seen where it's probably gone wrong for Niko Kovac. He was, after all, Kovac's assistant manager, even though it was only for like 11 games or just the beginning of the 2019 season. He was there and he probably knew how he could change things. But I think we should also credit maybe the impression that he gave to the Bayern board, because as you know, Niko Kovac got sacked and Flick was promoted to the managerial position, and then in 1.5 months, which is around 6 odd games, he was able to sign a permanent contract till the end of the season. And I think that's a pretty good job considering he was just an assistant manager, and like you said, Caleb, he didn't have much managerial experience.
Yeah, he must be doing. He's left a lasting impression on that team, and then he hasn't looked back since then. Uh, they won the league obviously in that season, but the next season went on to win the Champions League. And I know you have your opinions on that Champions League season in particular. It was COVID struck, so there was only one games, no away games, no fans as well. So yes, some people might say that it wasn't a real title challenge. I know Liverpool also get some stick about that. So when we look at this team, obviously he inherited the squad that Kovac left behind. What are the differences that you have seen that Flick has made?
Right. So I mean, the Kovac also inherited a team that's been around for a while. So I think when Kovac signed his first contract was the season that Robben and Ribéry left. So for Kovac, it was okay, fine. Two talisman of the club have left. How am I going to replace them? And to his credit, he didn't do a bad job. He won the domestic double, and he still maintained, a level of decency, in the league. But it was, especially his last season, he was conceding a lot, which led to them dropping points, not particularly losing, but them dropping points. And I think Flick's come in and he's tried to change that. That this is something that he's targeting on. So he's looking at tactics like gegenpressing and keeping the midfield narrow and tight so that he can win the ball back as soon as he loses it. Stuff that he's probably picked up from other German managers. And that's really helped him try to bring down this goals against numbers. So Kovac averaged maybe 1.26 goals against his Bayern team, whereas Flick has brought that down to just 0.93. So yeah, that's definitely a contributing factor about tightening up the defense and also shifting to a double pivot. I think Niko Kovac was very not he was not confused. He's probably he experimented a lot and he wasn't really certain about what kind of formation he wanted to use. He used to play 4-3-3s, 4-2-3-1s, 4-1-4-1. So 4-1-4 yeah 4-1-4-1 sorry. So, and he constantly used to shift between single and double pivot. But then when Flick came, if you look at Flick's recent formations, they've just been consistently 4-2-3-1. When Thiago was there, it was Thiago and Kimmich. Now he plays, either Goretzka in that role or Martinez. So yeah, so this revolution of Kimmich coming into the DM has also strengthened their defensive solidity, as well as I think Caleb, you found out that he's also been a big contributor to goals as well with really good assist numbers.
Yeah, so Kimmich this season has already 10 assists, which is tied a number one with Thomas Muller, who also we're going to speak about later in this episode. Uh, Kimmich has transitioned perfectly from that right back role into the CDM role, similar to what Lahm did during Guardiola's days at Bayern. And I find both those players very similar. Kimmich just seems like one of those players that are really intelligent on the ball, and he has always seems to have time and space as well. And I don't know like how these guys do it, but the transition from a right back to a CDM, and more importantly, contribute going forward. It's something to behold from Kimmich.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, and then speaking about fullbacks, and that's I guess another thing that Flick has inherited, not inherited, implemented from other German managers like Klopp, where he's especially his last season where you saw Davies push really high up on the pitch, same way how Robertson does it. He doesn't do it on both sides, so it's very similar to Jose Mourinho at Chelsea, where he would let Ashley Cole, push up, but then on the right hand side he wouldn't. He would prefer I think it was Ricardo Carvalho. He would prefer him to stay a bit deeper, just to support the defense. So similarly, I think Pavard does the same thing. Pavard doesn't really push up, but he does allow Flick does encourage Davies to push up. So yeah, that's a modern tactic that he's inherited. Something I don't think Kovac used to do. And yeah, definitely, as in going back to his influence, his Guardiola's influence in build-up playing, controlling the midfield, which is something that he has picked up from him and his time in Bayern. So Bayern used to get frequently overwhelmed in Europe with these high pressing teams. Notable instances were Liverpool 2 years ago and Spurs last season. So Spurs last season was one of Niko Kovac's last Champions League games, which he did win comfortably 7-2. But then you can't forget that Pochettino side was very, aggressive. It was high pressing, and they even scored the first goal. And looking back retrospectively, the first 15 minutes of that game, Spurs played really well, 15-20 minutes. And if they had just kept it up or, not been outmatched by just the sheer quality of that Bayern side, there might have been a different score. But I think Spurs on that night were going up against something that they didn't even imagine.
Yeah,
So it was a
they hadn't
completely
faced any
different.
team like that before.
Yeah.
That was one of the those points in the season that we were like, oh shit, Bayern are going to just run away with this, and they just did that. I think Nabry scored was it 4 goals that night?
Yep. Yeah, he kept up his, his Arsenal heritage and he really tore it up in London. But yeah, it was an insane match. Everything seemed to go Bayern's way and they scored lovely goals. But yes, to going back to the point, they were overwhelmed in that first half with this high pressing. So that's just something that Kovac used to, I think he used to experience. And now to counter this, Flick has played a more narrow midfield, and he's using over. So even when he loses the ball, he using the geek pressing tactics. He's playing it narrow, and and in his offensive formation, it complements us by he using overloads. So on one side, so he could find up to 5 players on one side, just having the numerical advantage. So even if they lose the ball, they'll just close passing lanes with cover shadows, etc., and try to win the ball back. And that's also backed up by the stats as well. By the pressing has increased by around 300 more presses from Flick's Bayern to Kovac's Bayern. And by pressing, I mean like pressing after 5 seconds after losing the ball. So yeah, it's definitely a shift in defensive mentality.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought that up, though. However, this season we were having a deep dive into their stats, and just on the face of it, Bayern last season they conceded 33 goals in 33 games, if I'm not mistaken, and already in 22 games they've already conceded 31 goals. So there is a bit of a fragility there. And what they have done right now is they've announced the signing of Upamecano in a Leipzig team that have only conceded 18 goals. I want to bring it back to the point where Bayern almost seem to bully the Bundesliga into getting whatever they want. Uh, this is something that we have spoken about multiple times on our channel and our website as well. Uh, when we talk about the domestic football, they are always expected to get, the domestic treble. And if they keep going out and buying the other team's best players, from an outside football fan looking in, someone like us, when we watch the Premier League, we always see it to be almost level playing field for a lot of the teams. Maybe not City and Liverpool in recent seasons. However, for Bayern, it's a different story, isn't it? They just go and pick up the hottest property in the Bundesliga.
Yeah, I mean, like even that the Hummels story of him
Yeah,
going from Dortmund to Bayern, that back to Dortmund, then back to Bayern, now back to Dortmund. I mean, you just don't. You might see the odd Carlos Tevez go from United to City, but it's rare to see players just like shamelessly going between rival clubs, and as well as picking hot talent from rivals. So I don't think City will never sell, even in the case of like Eric Garcia or Leroy Sané. You will never see City sell them to Premier League teams. It will not happen. And I don't think any Premier League team has the audacity to put in a bid because it'll just get rejected. So you just because for I think in the Premier League especially, it's it's more important about keeping your rivals less equipped than equipping yourself. But like, it's just strange to see how willing and how appeasing these Bundesliga clubs are, specifically to Bayern Munich and their demands.
it's almost like they have come to terms with, okay, Bayern are going to win the league every year, and it's just about these other three places for the Champions League and maybe for the lesser teams, the Europa League. It just seems like that because how can, if you were Leipzig and Upamecano at the time had a release clause on his name, I'm sure there would have been at least 10 more clubs in for him. Why sell him to Bayern? Why agree to that? Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, you have a way better defensive record, and I don't think anyone can doubt that Upamecano has a big part to play in that. So, if you are them, why do you sell to Bayern? Just coming back to this Bayern team and maybe the change of role. So we did speak about Kimmich earlier on and how he had to change his role from right back to a defensive midfielder. We've seen a change in Thomas Muller as well, who was always known to be a striker of some sorts, or like maybe even a number 10, but he wouldn't contribute to assists that much. However, last season he played 33 games and he contributed 21 assists.
Which
And
I
this
think is
season,
the Bundesliga record. Which I think is
it's a Bundesliga record, yep.
yeah. So
And this season he's already played, they've only played 20 games, Muller, and he's contributed 10 goals and 10 assists. So there's been a huge change in the way Muller plays. What are your thoughts on that?
yeah, so there's a story about this um, when Muller was asked in an interview in the Guardiola days what his job is or what his role is, and he said he's the Ramdeuter. And then ever since then, if you just Google Ramdeuter, you will get Thomas Muller because it's just been a name that's associated with him. And something that he himself like called himself he coined himself, sorry, and it literally translates to space interpreter in German. And that's what his role was under Guardiola, where he would just be in the right place at the right time. Now, I never used to like this, but if you look at it, this is when I was growing up, but then if you look at it from a football technical point of view, it's incredibly difficult. That's why they say that there haven't been any Raumdeuters after Thomas Muller. No one that can do it the way that he does. So yeah, so in that Guardiola Bayern team, he wasn't the most technically gifted. He couldn't shoot the best. He wasn't the best passer. He couldn't dribble, effectively. But his role was to find space, just be in that pocket of space and finish them off. And I think after his third or fourth game, he scored a hat trick, and all simple goals, simple tap ins, but all in different situations. And it's just his ability to find space. So I think Flick has now transitioned him not from a goal scorer, but from more finding pockets of space which will contribute to his assist tallies. And coupled with the fact that his passing ability has, developed over the years, he is much more of a better passer than who he was in Guardiola's time. So yeah, so all of this and him now running in behind the line, we do see that often in this Bayern team. So yeah, so he's using his talent of finding space, but now not in front of goal, but maybe the pass right before it.
What I like about Muller is like, yeah, he finds that space and he plays those simple passes. He doesn't try to complicate things. The ball will come in. He'll just try to get that flick on. He'll just try to pass it to, those high goal scoring chance areas. And you would always see maybe a Lewandowski coming in, just finishing things off, or Goretzka arriving late in from midfield. And it's just simple. And I'm a huge fan of Muller ever since I saw him first play uh, in the German national team. I think he scored around 15 goals across 3 World Cups, doing that kind of thing, just finding space. And he's taken that to a next level, not just with the goals, like you said, with those assists. And these are crazy numbers, right? Okay, George, on that note, I think we have looked at what Hansi Flick has changed at Bayern. He has made huge improvements, and the only thing now is to see if they can go one better, try to retain the Champions League. We all expect them to do the domestic uh, double or maybe the triple again, but we will wait till the end of the season, maybe come back for a Champions League preview if they reach the final and talk more about them then.
Sounds good.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Off the Line podcast brought to you by Your Football Journal. If you like the content, be sure to hit that like button, share, and comment. Follow us on socials and check out our website at yourfootballjournal.com. Links will be in the description. Catch us on Spotify for a new episode every Wednesday. Until then, keep it off the line.